Welcome back. We're going to take a break from national politics and the storm for a second to revisit, unfortunately, a theme here covered way too often on RFL, and that is ugly Albany, just when you thought it was safe to go back in the waters. Well, on Monday, New York State Senator Shirley Huntley, she was indicted on charges of conspiracy in the latest case involving a wide-ranging probe of pork barrel grants distributed by legislators. Now, these grants often distributed to nonprofit organizations that all too often legislators themselves founded or which are run by relatives and friends. Now, I just see somewhere Richard Brodsky screaming right now. Also, we have Assemblyman Vito Lopez. He's resigning as head of the Brooklyn Democratic Party after an ethics committee found that he sexually harassed staffers, but he says he will continue to serve in the assembly seat that he's held for 28 years. Lopez insists he never sexually harassed anyone. But to make matters worse, if it's possible, the New York Times reporting today that Assembly Speaker Shelley Silver secretly allowed for a payment to settle a harassment charge made earlier this year with taxpayer dollars in part, a confidentiality contract, and an agreement for Lopez to attend a sexual harassment seminar. Okay, let's break this in two parts because obviously for me, that Shelley Silver would get his hands dirty, allegedly at this point, into this story, Dominic, is seismic. I mean, he's one of the three men in the room historically, but I just don't get it. And for Vito Lopez?
It is a mess. Let's start that way. Working the phone this afternoon, a lot of legislators are shaking their heads in terms of this Lopez situation. We have to separate this. Now, he claims, in fairness, that he didn't do anything wrong. He didn't testify before the investigation. His lawyer just claimed no wrongdoing, presented no evidence. You have to separate this. It's not just one set of allegations of sexual harassment. The secret payment was made for the first set involving two women. Now there's the allegations of the second set. And what he's accused of is disgusting. I won't repeat it on television.
No, it's not just a misunderstanding.
But
if
for
it's
Shelley
true,
Silver, now the only thing I can think of is what does Vito Lopez know? Because now Shelley Silver received a black eye the first time his counsel was charged with sexual harassment.
Michael Boxley.
Yes, and he received a black eye over that. I don't know if that played a role into this, but Shelley Silver's got a problem. He's got to explain to the people of the state of New York and to women's organizations why he approved or signed off or knew of a secret payment of taxpayer money of $103,000.
Shelley Silver has managed to survive coups, survive pushes. How do you?
This one's a problem.
How do you get through this and hold a leadership position, let alone not be in some potentially real trouble here?
Well, Richard, this is the Democratic Party, the party of women. I have to say, no, I couldn't. I mean, look, I am very surprised. I think there is not a shrewder, better politician in this state. I've said it for many, many years than Sheldon Silver. The guy plays this, and he's a bright.
People say he can count votes better than anybody.
He's a very, very good speaker. You know, if you agree with his politics, I don't agree with his politics, but you can take nothing away from how sharp he is. You know, I'm surprised that. There's a lot of lawsuits settled in the state all the time. I'm just surprised that, you know, if I was the speaker, I would have made sure I announced this so that it was out in the open.
Stupid taxpayer dollars.
Well, no, but Richard, you know, I thought a little bit about that when you first told me about it, and clearly the state of New York, because he's an elected official, et cetera, the assembly could be sued or whatever the case is. There is a settlement there that the state will pay, you know, these type of settlements all the time. The problem.
Why shouldn't it be privately financed? Why shouldn't it come out of Lopez's pocket if he wants this to go away?
Well,
why should I, and I know it's literally a quarter of a cent of a dollar, okay, but why should I, in theory, as a taxpayer, have to subsidize some allegedly creepy behavior?
Well, again, I think that we have to, on the face of it, take a look at how lawsuits are settled and how they historically have. Is this any different than the way they've been doing business over the last 150 years? I just think it looks terrible when it's uncovered in this manner. They should have publicly come out, give the facts, et cetera, and say, et cetera, et cetera. Right. Not to keep it quiet. That's the worst thing you can do.
Before I run down, I want to get to the second part, Shirley Huntley, okay? And to me, Dom, the least interesting part of the story is her personally, because the narrative of this, I've seen this thing before, and it's not even a partisan thing. Now, I've heard the debate, and I happen to be taking the unpopular position that part of the problem is Albany lawmakers, whether it's the state senate or the assembly, you're asking these guys to come from all over the state to do basically what was supposed to be a part-time job to start, but it's a full-time job.
I don't buy
You're
that,
not
Richard.
paying them.
I don't buy that.
You're not paying them a huge
That's
telephone
not it.
number.
These are straight up crooks.
Okay.
That's the bottom line.
Listen,
Richard,
let's
that's
take
not
her out of
true,
this for
though.
a second.
They're not-
I'm not going to win the argument, so I'm not going to try
No,
this.
but they all have other jobs.
But here's you're getting
They
to my
all have
point.
other
But you're
jobs.
getting to my point, Tom. Because they have other jobs, and because it's wink, wink, nod, nod on this inherent conflict of interest all too often. Who are their clients at law firms? Well, they're people obviously who want to have access or interest in front of the assembly, the state senate, whatever the case may be. In this particular case, a Lulu, whatever we want to call it,
Pork
basically went into her pocket and she
No, it
created
didn't
this.
go into her
Okay,
pocket.
basically
She's
went
not-
to family members.
Right.
allegedly.
She's not. It's important to point out she's not accused of stealing a dime.
Members of the Huntley family are.
Right. Members of the family are. She's accused of
I'll
covering
go
it
through
up.
for everybody how this normally works, okay?
Now, here's why I say they're crooks. Because this is the scam that they do. Not all, some lawmakers in Albany.
Really similar to this spot again.
It really is disgusting, and it should be stopped immediately.
But I don't think people at home know, so break it down.
Here's how you do it quickly. You get elected, and then you got your family members, and you want to somehow funnel some money to them. So what, family members, boyfriends, whatever, girlfriends. So you get them to start a nonprofit organization. We will help the kids of New York with education. And then you, with your sole discretion, with your member item money, will say, okay, now I'm going to funnel, in this case, $30,000 to the organization. Leadership,
It's
meaning...
run out of, by the way, my basement.
Right.
Yeah.
Leadership signs off on it because everybody is doing it. And thus, they look the other way when the money disappears. And it's all legal until the money disappears. If you're running a legit nonprofit organization, you can do this legally. With no challenge from anyone, you as a lawmaker, Richard, decide that you're going to take taxpayer money and spend it with your cousin running the organization.
Fair, Tom?
He's exactly right. I mean, by any stretch of the imagination, it is just thievery. I mean, it is. I mean, and it's so, and it's sad too, because here you have, as an elected official, let's just say that you have a cause in your neighborhood, your community that is a worthy cause, and you want to set up a not-for-profit, okay? And you get a $500,000 grant, and you want to hire a $30,000 person, et cetera, et cetera. Well, you find a local community person who is a good person, who's been involved as a community organizer, and you hire them to distribute the other $470,000. And you make sure that there are programs out there. And you run it out of a storefront. You run it out there, not in somebody's basement where you're saying to your cousin Bob, hey, Bob, I got $40,000 for you to just go. I mean, what goes through the minds of these people is just, they just think that they're above it and they'll never get caught. And the taxpayers of New York forever have just consistently gotten robbed.
And they're taught this before they're even elected. The moment that they win the primary and they're headed to office, they are taught the scam, the legal scam of how to steal taxpayer money
Richard,
and get away with it.
See, Richard, the problem that I've had for a very long time, and the governor now is really cracking down on this, these member items things are just total BS. To this extent even, is that I have a real problem with legislators who take...
By the way, can you explain how a member item works, how it gets distributed, and also Lulu's, for example?
Here's what, well, Lulu's a little bit separate. Lulu's really are just a stipend for
a committee
a committee chairmanship or a special title or whatever, the $9,000, $7,000. But what happens in the budget negotiations is that the Senate, the Assembly, and the governor's office will ask for discretionary money, whatever that pot may be. It may be like in the Senate, it may be $25 million, maybe $50 million, whatever the case is. And then local legislators will come back, who's in favor, who's not, with the leadership, and they'll say, listen, I need $800,000 for my district. And then the legislator will take that $800,000 and he'll get a lot of requests from the Little League, the fire department, the police department, all things that the local government
Legit.
should be subsidizing.
Yes.
Why the state of New York legislators feel a need to be taking my tax dollars and handing it out to, even when I was on the Eastchester Town Board, I said, this is outrageous. The Eastchester Little League shouldn't be going to our state senator for $10,000. I mean, it's preposterous.
Yeah.
I mean, why is the Eastchester Fire Department going to a state legislator to say, buy us a piece of equipment? That's what we have a fire district for.
And it's unfair because if you're connected,
Right.
you have a shot at getting the money. But if you're an average person that's started a legit nonprofit trying to help kids in the South Bronx, you don't have a chance in hell of receiving one dime.
Well, listen, but that not necessarily true because, as you've seen, a lot of this money was supposed to be going to help real inner city programs. So it's not like it's I mean, it's just that some of the people are taking this money and abusing it.
I've always said that if you could just be a fly on the wall and just see how Albany works, and it's actually better than it used to be.
We just
right?
told you how it
You
works.
just broke it down. People wouldn't believe it. Anyway, all right, we're going to be right back, everybody. Stay with us.